Thank you. So this event seems to be full of people trying to figure out the future of television, future of content. And who better really to tell us where that might be going than two guys who are at a company deeply embedded in the production and distribution of content. So Phil and Jeff, for the benefit of those in the room who don't know, everything about your respective divisions, about Turner and about Warner Brothers International, why don't you take a minute to fill us in?
I'll take slight issue with the term big television. I still think of ABC, CBS, NBC, but we're in big and medium and small television. Turner is one of two divisions of Time Warner that puts on television networks in the U.S. all over the world. We're probably best known for CNN, then also in the U.S. TNT, TBS, the Cartoon Network, Turner Classic Movies, an insurgent that's now become a pretty big business called Adult Swim. And we have about 150 networks outside the United States too, everything from different languaged versions of the Cartoon Network to some brands that are like maybe only in Latin America, and some new ones that we're doing. And we're also very big in the digital business too. We started CNN.com 16 years ago. We do a lot of digital activity in sports. We operate the digital businesses of the NBA, of NASCAR, of PGA, Golf Association. So we like to think of ourselves in the branded environment business and not just in the TV network business.
And Jeff, what about you?
Well, the first thing I would say is it's a very good time to be in the content business. And this morning I was listening to Maurice Levy, and I just want to let you know we're the guys who make that mundane, banal programming that all those fat people sitting on the couch eating their peanuts and popcorn love to watch, whose idea of engagement is a remote control. We're also the guys who make programming that have millions of fans, that tweet about it, that post to Facebook, that interact on websites, and that stream that content to every one of the devices everyone else this morning has been talking about. You're familiar with our films like Harry Potter, the Matrix series, Lord of the Rings, almost every film that Clint Eastwood has made, our TV series like The Mentalist, 2.5 Men, Big Bang Theory, Gossip Girl. We've been doing it for 85 years. We produce for all of the networks. We distribute our product to 170 different countries. We license to free TV, pay TV, cable, satellite, linear, non-linear, subscription on demand. If there's a screen and an aggregator, some of our product is usually on it as long as they're willing to pay the right price. So it's a very big business for us. In addition to our distribution activities, we also run a couple of linear channels in conjunction with Turner in some cases. We have 50 branded subscription-on-demand services across many platforms, and we most recently have gotten into the international production business, buying a company in the UK called Shed Media, and now a company in Holland called Blazowski. So we're pretty well diversified all around the world, and we do this through a network of 12 offices who go and see all of these clients, old and many new, every day of the week.
So it's a great time to be in the content business. How is technology aiding being in the content business, or is it disrupting what you're trying to do?
Well, it's a large question. I think it aids more than disrupts. We've taken enormous advantage of all types of new digital technologies and distribution methods, and I think just some examples. We, like I said, in our sports production, at the same time we might be exhibiting a golf tournament on our TNT network in the U.S., which would be highly produced with lots of commentators and 30 different camera angles. When you go to PGA.com, you might have 3 separate screens. One you could follow a single golfer, say it's Tiger Woods, around. Another one might just be stuck on hole number 6. Another one could be stuck on, God knows something going on at the clubhouse. And I just think the two of them work together a lot to make it a more immersive experience. Same thing with a NASCAR race. Those of you, have seen NASCAR race in the U.S., you watch the race on TNT, and on NASCAR.com, you can be literally in the car with some of the drivers. So I actually think a lot of it's additive, and I've been listening to a lot of the sessions here, and I get a little worried that things may be framed as a zero-sum game, and this is going to be the expense of that. And I prefer to think of this, and I was really pleased to see Nikesh yesterday in his opening remarks do a historical perspective. 'Cause if you look at the entire history of media, whatever new thing comes along rarely has wiped out or even seriously harmed the old. I mean, look at FM radio to AM radio, and then television to radio. And if you had got a group of executives that had jobs like Jeff and I and some other network and studio presidents 30 years ago and said, what did you worry about the most in 1975? It probably wasn't cable networks. And today, who knows what to worry about? I prefer to think that we can work with everybody, take advantage of everything. With YouTube, I'll just do two quick anecdotes about YouTube. We just had a great presentation. We did 2 years ago 2 terrific, groundbreaking presidential debates in America, one for the Democrats, one for the Republicans, having all the questions submitted by YouTube. Really came out of a casual conversation with the guys at YouTube, and people came up to me unsolicited and said this was the most exciting new innovation of a presidential debate since the Kennedy-Nixon debate, which was the first one. And frankly, the little-known fact, I wouldn't say we discovered Piers Morgan on YouTube, we've been looking, at some point, who would be the next Larry King on CNN. We'd known of Piers Morgan. We mostly knew of him as a talent judge. But we started, the former head of the CNN US network kept sending me and others YouTube links to watch Piers' show on ITV, which I'd frankly never heard of, and to see these terrific interviews he was doing with everything from celebrities to heads of state. We said, hey, maybe this is the next Larry King. So I think there's a lot that these technologies and these industries can do together, and we prefer to make full use of this, and we stopped talking about Turner's business as networks 9 years ago. We really think of these, and we call ourselves the network division, of course, and most of our revenue is made in traditional television networks. We prefer to think of our business as organized around very powerful, curated brands, where the brand have distinct promises, and these promises need to be carried out on whatever platform they're on, and we refer to them as branded media environments, not just networks.
But you sell programming to, around the world, but you also sell some programming to Netflix in the United States, which is, I guess most of the people in this room will know about, or will know more about as Netflix expands internationally. How do you balance the needs of your traditional partners with a service like Netflix?
I think that's a good question. Let me just make a comment on your prior question first, which is technology is fantastic. It has challenges because in today's world it has increased piracy, but it has also created immense opportunities. We wouldn't have Sky or Canal Plus if it wasn't for the development of technology. We wouldn't have multi-channel television in these markets if it wasn't for the development of technology. And now to your point, we have new opportunities in over-the-top services because of the development of technology. And this has meant that there are many more players, and the barrier to entry has been lowered dramatically. If you have an idea, if you have a concept, if you can market it, if you can fund it, and if you can then aggregate programming legitimately and make it available in a secure environment, you can be in business today. That was not the case 10 years ago, where there was limited spectrum and where you needed a broadcast license. Now, how do we fit that into the ecosystem is a constantly evolving answer, because traditionally in the United States, Netflix fed at the end of the food chain, and you mainly saw programming that was there, with the exception of the product they had through their deal with Starz, as deep library product, and it was built upon a subscriber base mainly created from physical distribution. Today, when you look at Netflix rolling out in Canada, Latin America, soon to be coming to the UK, and certainly to other territories, these guys are coming in and looking at getting into much earlier windows, potentially competing with free television, potentially competing for the first pay window. In Canada, Netflix bought Paramount's output for the first pay window. In Germany, Love Film, owned by Amazon, bought Paramount's product also for the first pay window in competition with Sky Deutschland. And you're going to, I'm sure, see Love Film, owned by Amazon, competing very much in the UK, which is the market where they launched. So these players are going to exist at all points along the content chain, and it's really only a question of how much they want to pay for the rights that they want to acquire in the window that they'd like to acquire it in.
And is it true to say that there are different types of programming work better on a service like Netflix versus a traditional TV model?
Yeah, I think what we found internationally is the shows that work best are episodic shows, not serialized shows. Just look in France. The Mentalist is TF1's #1 show with 10 million viewers. CSI works in many European countries. House works in many European countries. Shows that are serialized, if you look back to things like 24 or Lost, which had a moment in time, broadcasters found very hard to schedule. They did not have great repeatability, but for services like Netflix or Love Film, where you can have all the episodes available to you and you can start at the beginning and go all the way to the end and binge on these episodes and watch them back to back to back, there's great value. I mean, when in the early seasons of 24, there was nothing better than watching those episodes one after the other. It was like watching a 24-hour movie. So I think you're seeing a segmentation where we might not take shows that have great repeatability, such as 2.5 Men or Big Bang Theory or The Mentalist, and we might not put them on services like Netflix. However, shows like Fringe, created by J.J. Abrams, which is very sequential and very deep in its mythology and doesn't have a great repeat cycle for a lot of channels, those are the shows that might have a great afterlife. And that's basically what we saw with the recent deal in the United States, where the CW did a deal, which is owned by CBS and Warner Brothers, for those series on Netflix, and traditionally those series have not had a vibrant second cycle.
So, what Phil, maybe you can answer this, but what has Turner and Time Warner done to keep viewers engaged and keep viewers from drifting away? I was thinking about TV Everywhere, which is a sort of mantra that runs through the company. And, it is a big topic in the US. I mean, may not be on the top of people's minds here, but it's certainly going to be, presumably, as time goes on.
Yeah, well, let me just set the table by explaining what TV Everywhere is, because it's a very broad statement. The technical term is authentication. What it basically says is that if you are subscribing to a multi-channel service from any MVPD, your cable company, your satellite company, Verizon, AT&T, if you can be authenticated as a subscriber, very easy to do, your account number, your home phone number, or with some operators, even just the last 4 digits of your Social Security number or taxpayer ID number, you can be authenticated in 30 seconds. And then once you are able to view the best content of all of your favorite networks. Not all of them have signed on yet, but I'll get to in the middle. Sure. All of our networks are on there. And you can watch it where you want, when you want. You can watch it on an iPad, you can watch it on your computer, you can watch it when you want, you can watch it on a mobile phone for a certain number of days. The same ad load is in there, so we can monetize it by having measured in the what's called the Nielsen C3 period. After that period, we may still keep it on there with a different advertising model. And it's all for the price of your cable subscription, no surcharge. And we hope that the rest of the industry, a lot of other programmers, cable networks are coming on board. We hope others will do it. We think it's a great consumer proposition. It's available right now in about 70 million homes, so almost 70% of the entire footprint of cable advertising and phone companies. And it's a very simple consumer proposition. What's frustrating is the consumer take-up has been slow, but I attribute some of that to just not enough networks up there, and we're really just beginning to market it. We just did a very funny spot. It's just started to run where Conan O'Brien comes out on the stage wearing 150 different devices and a 150-pound suit on his body, and the joke is it's Conan on TV everywhere, not TV everywhere on Conan. But we're going to start to get the message out there more.
What about brands? I mean, you have some of the biggest brands in US TV under your umbrella at Turner. I just wonder whether at some point in the future, if I'm a fan of one of those channels, one of those brands, I might not want a bundled cable subscription. I might just want CNN, or I might just want Cartoon Network for my kids, or whatever it might be. Do you foresee a time when audiences can go over the top to audiences and they don't need a distributor or a cable company?
Well, I think we're going to be very thoughtful and careful about that. We'll always look at any new model that comes along, but up to now we haven't done that. And keep in mind, we're a company that in the days when Ted Turner would own the company and ran the company, we were actually owned for a long period of time by the cable industry. Mm-hmm. We were still the first company to do business with the direct satellite companies. We've always taken this view of being platform agnostic, but up to now, for the foreseeable future, we are constantly thinking about this. We prefer to distribute our channels on facilities-based distributors that either put the satellites up in the sky or put the wires into the home, put satellite dishes on the roof, and frankly, it's just simple economics. They are paying us every month on every subscriber, and it's an awful lot of money, and we're going to be very careful about doing something where we're undermining their business.
So it's a business that still works extremely well.
Yes, but you can never say never, and we're going to listen to everybody. We're going to think it through very carefully. I think one of the things that really I'm very proud of our company, and this is very much Warner Brothers, very much a part of this, along with HBO, as I think we've taken a very clear thinking, thoughtful approach to how to monetize content, keeping in mind all the constituencies we have. Obviously, one is our own shareholders. We have to earn a good return. We have to try to make as much money as we can every year. Another is the creators of this content. I mean, these people are very, very important people to us. I mean, if you look at who has consistently delivered the top dramas, the top comedies, a lot of them come from the same names. And there's an open competition every couple of years between studios to sign these people on an exclusive basis. I know this from a previous life. 20-something years ago, I used to be a TV packaging agent and was very involved in this process. And one of the ways that studios attract the best creative people is A, to have a great environment for them to create in, to have people that are very helpful in placing their shows on networks, but to also feel that they're getting a really fair shake, that the distribution arms of their studios are doing the best to monetize the content because they own a share of it as well.
What about the kind of age-old question about content and distribution? A few years ago, Time Warner had a cable business bolted onto it. Spun off, now a pure content business. Whereas you see Comcast which is a huge cable company, buying NBC Universal. Do you think the argument's been won on that content doesn't really need to have the pipes as well?
Well, I think it's been won for us. I mean, we're very happy to be a content-focused company. We made the determination many years ago that Time Warner Cable would be much better off detached from the larger Time Warner. I kind of wonder sometimes having the same name. That can get problematic because people come up to me complaining that their broadband doesn't work. But I think that we're in much better position today being a totally content-focused company, and Time Warner Cable continues to do very well as a separate cable company. It worked for us. Every corporation makes their own determination on strategy. I don't like to talk about our competitors.
But Jeff Bewkes, your CEO, has talked about this being a golden age of television.
Yeah.
I wonder how that can be possible when there are so many sort of disruptive forces sort of leaning into the business at every angle.
He was referring to, because I know I've used the same expression. I think when we're talking about the golden age of television, we're talking about the quality.
Right.
And the people that are making television, miniseries, movies for television, comedies and dramas. Again, when I worked as an agent over 20 years ago, you couldn't approach a major star about doing an episodic television series. It would signal to them, the beginning of the end of their career. And today, look at the stars that are doing episodic television. It's amazing. Look at the quality of the writing. Now, some of this is also the fact that the big studios are making less movies and more franchise-oriented movies and more of a tentpole strategy. But the quality of the writing and the acting and the creative elements in episodic television today has never been greater. And that's certainly what I refer to as the golden age of television. I'm pretty sure that's what Jeff was referring to. And you augment that with the overlay of TV everywhere, that you can get this level of quality, not just having to make sure you get home at 9 o'clock on Tuesday night, but just for a simple price of a multi-channel subscription, you can get it on your iPad, your iPhone, et cetera.
I think to add to that, the testament to the golden age of television and the high quality of production is just the fact that 10 years ago, you wouldn't see any U.S. programming in prime time on any major networks throughout Europe. Today, you do see it there. In fact, in some cases, network television shows are performing better than U.S. feature films, where it used to be the other way around. When we're spending $3 or $4 million an hour to produce a series times 22 episodes, when you're employing the best writers, and when your execution is flawless, there's just no denying that audiences around the world will want to watch that. I think we've also moved away from very parochial shows that only Americans can relate to, and much of what we make now is very global in its perspective, and people will relate to it, whether it's in Japan, Russia, the UK, or Australia. Drama certainly travels better than comedy, but even American comedy, which typically had no interest internationally, is working in the UK, is working in Australia, it's even working in Germany. So even territories where we're dubbing US comedies, they're beginning to get some traction. And this is all due, I think, to the quality of what we're producing and the investment that we make in making only the best that can be made.
Has technology changed the way that the programming reaches the screen? I'm thinking, looking at the YouTube presentation before and thinking about the investment they're making in content. Aren't there serial shows that you guys have picked up which would had the genesis online?
Well,
Children's Hospital was the one I was thinking.
Yeah, Children's Hospital is an interesting example. We started a small group called Studio 2.0, which was making original content for the web. At the time, we had WB-TV on in the U.S., or sorry, it was called the WB. And we made some short segments of a show called Children's Hospital, an irreverent comedy. Took place in a hospital. After we got some traction there, we stitched some of those short episodes together into half hours. We licensed them to our colleagues at Turner, who ran it in Adult Swim. It then got some traction there, and it actually turned into a series that was ordered the following season for full half-hour shows. So technology and the ability to get things out without taking up valuable real estate on broad-based networks, but on much narrower venues, is giving us the opportunity to launch new things with much less risk, and with that platform or broadcaster taking much less risk for time for niche programming.
I think this is something you're going to see a lot more of. By the way, I would add extremely irreverent show on an extremely irreverent network, for those of you who are not familiar with Adult Swim, which was a great example of that big companies can do startups. It was a startup within the Cartoon Network, which has become unbelievably successful. I actually think there's a great opportunity, working with some of the companies that we've heard today as a way to incubate talent. I mean, I remember, used to be you had to troll the comedy clubs at 1 o'clock in the morning to find the next Tim Allen, the next Roseanne. And, I think you may find some of them on YouTube. Now, the interesting thing is to look at some of the places where raw talent is being incubated, and then you marry it up with a really skilled, showrunner. I mean, The Simpsons started as a little bit within, what was the name of that show? The
Tracy
Ullman Show.
Yeah.
And I remember the two Canadians, the McKenzie brothers, started as a 2-minute insert in Second City Television. I mean, anybody remember the comedy Alf? I mean, Alf was created by a near bankrupt puppeteer in New Haven, Connecticut, and somebody put him together with a really skilled showrunner who had an overall deal at Lorimar, which is now part of Warner Brothers, named Tom Patchett. I mean, I think there should be a lot more lateral thinking about all of these companies and all these media working together to identify talent, to marry the right kind of talent with the right kind of showrunners, and create hits that large and small networks and successful distribution enterprises can make a lot of money off of.
Well, and just look at last year, we did a show with William Shatner for CBS called Shit My Dad Says. Well, we all know that started as a Twitter feed. It became a best-selling book. And then we made a primetime series out of it. So, new sources of creativity all the time.
On the news side, I will tell you that Twitter and Facebook and even our own CNN iReport, which we started our own user-generated content site, have become just as important sources of breaking news now as the traditional AP, Reuters. In fact, we covered the entire spring green revolution uprising in Tehran, where it was extremely dangerous to put correspondents in a situation like that. We used a combination of Google Earth, Twitter, Facebook, CNN iReport, brought all these feeds into our studios in Atlanta, brought our Mideast experts into Atlanta to comment on what was going on, and did a much more comprehensive job covering that multi-week breaking news event than we ever could have done having correspondents on the ground in Tehran, and half of them would probably be dead.
But is it worth, I mean, again, with YouTube in mind, also with Netflix in mind, Netflix is responsible for something like 30% of internet streaming traffic in prime time. Where would Netflix rank if it was a TV channel?
Look, this is going to sound, I don't in any way want to minimize it. Netflix is a very well done product, and has a definite place in the whole ecosystem, and it's really good for the consumers, and I've used it a lot myself. But if you were to measure the total Netflix monthly viewing today, I can't predict 3 years from now, but today, if you were to take the total monthly usage of Netflix, by our estimation, it would be somewhere between the 51st rated cable network and the 85th rated cable network. Now, if you were to take Facebook, it'd be number 8. If you were to take YouTube, it'd be somewhere around number 30. This is in terms of number of hours of usage per month. The thing that's lost in all this is two things. One, people are watching more television than ever before, even with all of these new media choices. And the other thing, which is very interesting, is by every analysis we've done, the heavy users of online video are also the heavy television watchers. It's not like a zero-sum game where they're turning TV off and just going on the internet. The heavy media consumers are the heavy media consumers.
And you guys need to protect and carefully guard the programming that you produce and distribute, right?
And again, each show is different. Each territory is different. There are certain shows, I will call them like the iconic primetime, nighttime shows, where whether we make it ourselves or we go out and acquire it, we will, and again, this could change in the future, but for now, we insist on freezing the SVOD rights. We want that programming exclusively.
The subscription
subscription video on demand.
Yeah.
We want that exclusively for our network. But for the product that's running in the morning, we're not as religious about it. And frankly, there's an argument to be made that for shows that have been on many years, it might be a good idea to expose season 1, or to always have a pilot either available on our own in our own environment through TV Everywhere, or potentially Netflix or Amazon, so we can introduce new people to the series. Jeff mentioned before sequential dramas, which generally don't get a great syndication sale, a great first cable window sale, at least in the U.S. They've always done very well in the DVD box sets. Netflix, services like Netflix or Amazon Prime, they could be very good partners in what I will just call the TV ecosystem for continuing to finance sequential dramas that don't get the benefit of the $2 million an episode sale like a Big Bang Theory or a Mentalist will get. So you have to, you just have to be very thoughtful about this. There's no religious principles here. There are certain shows that we'd want to protect, and there's certain things where we probably could coexist.
And I think for us, as Phil
And that's just for the U.S. It's different
Yeah.
in some territories.
Yeah, I think as he protects his network brands, each show to us is a brand and has a life cycle. And we also need to nurture, cultivate, develop, and protect that. And as we're licensing through different windows, it's different in each country. And there is no golden rule that there has to be or doesn't have to be a pay window first, or that a free TV license period has to be a year or 3 years, and then a basic cable window has to be a certain amount of time, and only then can it go to an over-the-top aggregator. I think we're going to see all the places moving around, and I think it's incumbent upon us to figure out how we can generate the most value and at the same time preserve the long life cycle for some of these shows. And I think we'll treat different shows in different ways. For the most part in Europe, as we license our primetime shows, broadcasters only get limited holdbacks or exclusivity against SVOD. We then are able to take that product out and place it judiciously in an SVOD environment. And what we've chosen to do, unlike some of our other colleagues, is to put that under a Warner brand, schedule that ourselves, schedule it dynamically, almost make it replicate what linear scheduling looks like, and not simply take every season and every episode, put it up online, and leave it up online, because quite frankly, we believe there's much more interest when you dynamically schedule and people are looking for what's new and what's the last chance to watch. So we're taking our responsibility quite seriously when we take that window that overlays a broadcast window and ensuring we don't undermine the long-term value for us and our broadcasting partners.
Okay, I know we're short on time, and